As you've been told, my name is Mbogo Njehia. Currently, the truth is, after all Ian has said, is I'm just trying to be the better matatu guy, right? We've seen what's happened to the prices of fuel. It's about to get crazy in another month. You'll be choosing whether to fuel your car or drink water or some other form of sustenance, and hopefully you'll find the service that we provide, to add value to your lives. So today, first, it's great that the room is full. It shows that there's a lot of value people are getting, right? Half the time after lunch, especially if you're on the corporate Kaplan, you just check out. The evening has started early, so it's great to see you guys here. And for the next 30 minutes, I hope to engage with a number of panelists to discuss payment transformation and digital transformation. And really the question is, which way is best? Is there one? Maybe not. What's going to be your unique mix? What's going to be your core pillar as you look at the different opportunities within the continent? So joining me on stage will be Annie Njenga, who's the Regional Lead Fintech and Enablers at MasterCard. Annie, if you could please join me on stage. Guys, help me welcome Annie on stage, please. And George Murage, CTO at Cellulant. Join me on stage, please. Tim Theuri, who's the Executive Head Cybersecurity at M-Pesa Africa. And last but not least, we'll have Stephen Njenga, Group CIO, Payments from Equity Group. Steve, excellent. Let me stand on this side. I have a preference for looking at my panelists, so you know that thing for craning your neck like this. Like, Steve, what do you think about? Doesn't look good on camera either, and engagement is better this way. But I think we'll start with Annie. No, I mean just because I chose you, right? that doesn't have to be a reason. Sometimes just is good enough. So I mean, at MasterCard, you sit at this really great intersection of everything. So my question to you is, how do you see all your different publics kind of like thinking through this digital transformation versus payment transformation sort of conundrum?
Yeah, so I'll say that I'm seeing a lot of collaboration. Mm-hmm. So we'll find banks are collaborating with telcos, they're collaborating with Fintechs. They're also looking to reach a lot of new market segments to remain competitive, because they wouldn't be able to reach those market segments by themselves. Yes. So if you think about the gig economy, if you think about the underserved, the unbanked, and then they're definitely looking to build new products. Fantastic. Together. Okay. Yeah? So that's what I'm seeing in the market.
And what's your differentiation between the two? Like when you're thinking digital transformation versus payment transformation?
So digital transformation is when you think about your core business and you think about your core value proposition to your customers, and how are you going to make that all digitally native. And so I would give an example of things like digital KYC, so you don't have to go into a banking hall to actually get all your documents like you used to do before in the olden days. And then payments transformation is where we're trying to see to understand how do we make both consumers and merchants either start paying digitally, or start accepting payments digitally. So this is where you'll see tap on phone. So I'm sure you've seen all the. I get very excited whenever I go to a supermarket and I see guys tapping on the POS. You see contactless. Yeah. So those are the different differentiators that we have in the market.
Excellent. It would be fantastic to see something similar, for public transport. I mean, that's a passion area of mine, and hasn't quite been addressed. We've seen various implementations, and I think our biggest challenge is we always go for what are those tours that our parliamentarians love going to, and most of us still do. We go for benchmarking, and then we kind of like do what we call pick and place. Pick and place and assume that would work. So I think it's fantastic that you guys are looking at this kind of like localized solutions and working with the full spectrum, whether it's governments, fintechs, etc. And I think it's a great place for them to occupy. You're kind of like it's always fun, because you're seeing all these different ideas coming through. So over to George. I mean, another day, another partnership. I mean, these guys are hard on that stuff. And I mean, the most notable for me in the recent past has been one by a company called Gray. So Gray is promising to give African gig workers, essentially everyone, instant foreign denominated accounts that you can access from wherever you are. We all know the dance that has been happening online with other providers like PayPal and etc. So where do you feel such a partnership sits? Is that payments transformation or is that digital transformation?
Yeah, thank you, Mbugua. I tend to think that payment transformation is a subset of digital transformation, because on the payment transformation, what you're trying to do is just keep the payments, whether you're receiving or making them, in digital form. And then you're going to enjoy the velocity that comes with payments just being done in a digital form. Mm-hmm. So like in this particular use case in our partnership with Gray, what we're offering Gray, them being a provider of these foreign bank accounts, is you're getting paid in euros or in dollars or in pounds, but how do I get that in Kenya shillings in Kenya? How do I get that in Naira in Nigeria? So it's to provide a frictionless way in which the users are able to access the money locally, but still in digital form. And then you can decide if I want to take this digital payment to either use it for purchases or to eventually convert it to cash. It's actually a choice that we're able to provide the user. And we do this just by providing a single API that covers various markets within Africa. Okay. We like saying internally that, our APIs are very African. They speak all the languages. Kenya shilling, Naira, Kwacha, Pula, you name it. And that is what a lot of customers and a lot of our partners are actually looking for. Yeah.
Excellent. I think the interesting thing about what companies like Cellulant are doing is that at the end of the day, you don't really care how and where you get paid. You just want to get paid. So I think that would be fantastic to see how that, how that ends or how that pans out in the longer term, knowing the challenges on the continent we have, especially with remote work and gig work growing. So now, Tim, we've come from the enabler, we've gone to a challenger fintech, and now we come to M-Pesa. We don't know, M-Pesa. M-Pesa. Yeah, who's M-Pesa? Like, where do we categorize them? Are they a startup? Are they a challenger fintech? Are they a favorite child? But in Kenya, you are a huge success. But what we see is that in other markets, depending on who you speak to, it could either be an epic failure or, this child is struggling a bit. What do you think? What do you think worked? And what could be maybe some of the insights or a playbook, if you must, for anyone who's looking at, probably digital or payment transformation?
Yeah, so I don't know if you're asking for the secrets, our secrets and strategy.
Yes.
When I look at it, maybe for Kenya, I think one of the key advantages that was there was, mobile money was something very new. So we had the advantage of being a fast mover and also a regulator who did not oppose, if I can put it that way, who allowed us to actually start, because nobody would have imagined that, 15 years ago, that what M-Pesa would become now. We like to think of ourselves as the largest fintech in Africa, and looking at a part of our Pan-African ambition strategy, and M-Pesa Africa, the subsidiary of Safaricom, which was formed about 2 years ago, is basically the crystallization of the same. It's basically just differentiating from the telco side. Everybody knows Safaricom from the telco side. Some know, apparently the gentleman doesn't know about M-Pesa, but I'll assume he's from outside Africa. Yeah, when I look at it, those two allowed us to start. And once the other regulators, the other countries saw the successes, the benefits, the value that our customers actually got from these mobile money payments, from virtual instant payments from one to the other. I remember, I think it was 20 years ago, when the big banks then, that was Barclays and Stanchart, said you had to deposit a minimum of, I think, 10 or 20,000, I can't remember, and that was like $1 million shillings right now, just living in your bank account. But from that, the difference that is there from that to now, where you actually empower the mama mboga with a pay bill, so that she can ensure that she receives her payments instantly. She is secure, so that you can't rob her of her cash, and she can be able to use that cash now using digital technology for any other payments that she actually requires. That allowed now this to actually be successful. When I look forward in terms of what we are growing to, so it's just ensuring that, for instance, in Ethiopia, we continue to roll out M-Pesa in other new markets, and not necessarily always through our telco partners, but even above and beyond that. Just like some of our competition, I think some of them who are here are actually rolling out similarly.
Fantastic. I think one of the key points you hear him say is someone allowed them to start. Nowadays, unfortunately, what happens to a nail that sticks out?
It's nailed in.
You're quickly put back in your place. And I think that's the biggest impediment and challenge for most innovators or people who are innovating in financial services, because you're afraid. Mbogwa, go, try. But they don't tell you that once you get hammered, you'll be like, he was a good guy, it was a good company when it was there, and no one, we're all looking for mboga and we all want milk for our kids, so we're not willing to risk it. So I think one of the key things you're saying is that opportunity to actually put something out there and kind of like refine it and figure out how it works. Some guys who are great on that journey is, Steve. First, I think we should give them a round of applause. 15 million members. I love that ad, by the way. So 15 million members, and these guys are also like in case studies. If you go to an Ivy League school, you'll find, Equity being headlined there as a case study. But here's the thing: banks are traditionally known to be laggards. So, and depending on where you sit, you could either say, that's a lie, but, perception is the reality. So what sort of insights would you give us that either reinforce this perception or would make us walk out of here saying, banks are not laggards, you guys don't actually know what goes in these places?
Well, thanks. Can you hear me? Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good. Yeah, thanks, Bogwa. So it just depends. I think banks are slow, for sure. But we have the customers, we have the money, so to speak.
What do we say?
And I think Harry there knows us, so that's a good thing.
And then noon, yes.
Yeah, but it's really, they're laggards because of the I guess, the sort of, it's tied to the brand awareness. Everybody knows M-Pesa, they know Pezesha, they know Branch. We're not good at that. We're not good at marketing our services and our capabilities. And the fact of the matter is, if we do something and it has an issue in the market, it's very obvious, right? So the culture is to be a little bit slow to market. We don't want to take risks, especially when we're going to upset a cart that's full of 15, 17 million customers actually now. So we try to be very, very careful. But we're very deliberate, especially at Equity. And I'll be honest with you, Equity has the capability to take on a lot of these fintechs, but we're not going that route. It doesn't make sense to reinvent the wheel. We're also partnering with the likes of MC, MasterCard, Cellulant, all these guys.
So Dala as well.
Exactly. I think what you're going to see happening is becoming the BSS, banking as a service. You won't see us, but you'll be using us in a lot of the capabilities because of these partnerships.
Okay, yeah. I think that's a great way to look at it. Banking as a service. That the other analogy I know is to say when someone wakes up in the morning, you drink water. Have they enabled that process of you drinking water? Maybe you paid for that bill, your water bill, through them, and things like that, which is an interesting take on the market as opposed to constantly wanting to be known. Sometimes the silent ones are where those still waters run really, really deep. So still on news, what is your process when you're thinking about transformation, whether it's on the payment side or digital transformation?
Equity is very customer centric, and I think that comes from the history of Equity from when it was building society in the village. The Mamba Boggers could actually leave their assets at the branch overnight. So we're very, very customer centric. One of the few banks that are actually building additional branches. Yeah. because so that's key to that. So we look at all our transformation from the customer perspective. What is it that our customers are asking for? There's obviously the industry perspective. Everybody wants to go digital. We're going to cut costs, etc. So everybody's doing that. But to differentiate ourselves, we want to make sure that we understand what our customers, or members, as we call them, are looking for. We really understand, Equity is really good at understanding the customers or the members' needs. So we're looking to embed ourselves, to use that word, in our members' lifestyle. Be it a mama boga, be it a guy like you, educated, etc. So when we have a handle on that, then we know where to inject the transformation as a whole. We don't go just after the tech transformation. That's number one. So it's, again, coming from the customer perspective. Secondly, I think the transformation must transform the organization itself, because I think if you just focus on the tech, you're not going to get very far.
Yeah.
So we've also restructured internally at Equity. Most people are not aware of that. Just the organizational structure. We need to, I think organizations need to onboard tech-savvy management and executives.
Yeah.
The banking fraternity, at least in Kenya, tends to be very homogeneous. People kind of move from bank to bank to bank. That's got to change. So we are doing some of those things. You see a lot of new talent at Equity coming from all over Africa, not just Kenya. So that's part of the transformation.
Great. Move fast.
Break things.
Move fast.
Break things.
Learn fast.
Move fast, break things. That's one of those mantras that some guys who build companies out in Silicon Valley was preaching at some point. But what you hear from Equity is they're deliberate and they're slow. I think the analogy is that of an elephant. It will take time to turn, but my friend, you cannot stop that turn. And they've been very gracious to say, guys, we can take out all of you, but that's not how we play. Back to you, Annie. Now we've looked at the issue of regulation, and you guys play in different jurisdictions, and you of course interface with all these guys. Do you therefore end up either helping outliers, or let's call them moonshot thinkers, to navigate? Like if you're in Kenya and you're struggling because of this particular innovation that you're pursuing, and I land at your door, how do you help me have that idea reach its potential?
Yeah, so we have a couple of ways. One, there's a whole team of lawyers and franchise people who ensure that we're working within regulation. And then we also have a number of programs specifically focused on supporting fintechs and larger tech players. If you think about a fintech who's looking to launch their own card program in a market, we have a program called Fintech Express that is able to support this fintech to do that. And how we've been able to put that program together is that we've brought banks and we've brought processors, right? We've brought them together. They've put in all the work that's needed to all the back-end work that's needed to implement this card program. And all the fintech has to do is plug into this one particular alliance partner, and they're able to start launching their card programs in a number of weeks vis-a-vis a number of months. We also have programs for larger partners. So if you think about a partner like Tutuka in this market, they are technology partners. What we do with them is that we expose them to our network. We give them access to a lot of our products all across the board. We give them a lot of training. And then once they've integrated all our products into their own end-to-end solution, they're able then to sell off those solutions to their own customers. And this is all done within regulation, right? So if you think about places where there's on-soil regulation, this is what the program is looking to support. And then I think the third one is, if I talk about how we're supporting larger fintechs, so these are the fintechs who are looking to scale up into other markets. So if you think about a fintech that's in Kenya and it's looking to get into Singapore, how do you open that conversation with both customers, regulators? We're able to support that, and we have a program for that. We call that program Start Path. And I guess some of the companies that you would know in this market would be Kasha. We've had them in the program. We've had Lipalita looking at the lending space.
Yes.
Yeah, so we've had a couple of local regional players actually getting into other markets with ourselves.
Fantastic. What I like about what they are doing is that they're true enablers. The unfortunate thing is that most corporates, whether it's from the banking sector, or even the regulators in different respects, speak a different game than what they actually deliver. So I think one of the takeouts is whether we're going to look at sandboxes that allow us to test and experiment with these things. Let's be a lot more open and a lot more genuine about our intentions and help that space grow. George, now this is this is to you. All the companies Annie mentioned, they use an API in one way or another. And nowadays, people are building companies an API layer at a time. When you ask a guy, where's umejenga nini? What have you actually built? It's an API from here, it's an API from there. Do you think that's a defensible model? Because I hear Equity saying, by the way, guys, we're still opening branches. M-Pesa is telling you, by the way, guys, we have X thousand agents. But here is a different dispensation where it's API over API over API. Is that defensible?
Okay, that's an interesting question. So for us, who began experimenting with mobile payments before the advent of M-Pesa, the whole API discussion is very welcome, regardless of the current state. Mm-hmm. So they are in varying degrees of maturity and varying degrees of capabilities. But at least now there is a common vocabulary, common terminology. Oh. And the architecture is sort of like becoming known, so that when you're talking about an API, everybody sort of like gets a sense, these are the rough, high-level building blocks that I should be able to expect from your APIs. The truth is, the whole payment ecosystem requires so much depth and breadth. You can't do it alone. You're always going to find, for this, I need to collaborate with so-and-so. For this, I need to collaborate with so-and-so. And for certain capabilities, you decide, I'm going to build this myself because I feel with my own proprietary technology, there are certain capabilities I want to bring to the market that are unique. But for me, I find it's very encouraging. And the fact that with time, they're going to grow, they're going to mature. So now when I think about where we started, mm-hmm. I don't know whether you'd really call them APIs. The thing is, somebody will tell you integrate. And because we were starting, we couldn't complain about how good or how bad it was. Okay. So we became experts in banking systems. We became experts in MNO systems. We became experts in telco switching systems like TIBCO and others. And you really couldn't complain. They weren't there. But now it's a document. There's a sandbox. You can test it. It may not be very mature, but it's a very, very positive start. And I think what's going to happen is the ones with more mature capabilities, the ones that are evolving faster, the ones that are responding closer to what the market wants are going to grow and increase in maturity. So in my view, it's a very welcome development.
Great. Yeah. I mean, now, still on the topic of APIs, over to you, Tim. These APIs allow things to happen quickly, right? So in the same speed that they allow you to access a service, is the same way they'll allow value to flow out. So, I mean, what are some of the considerations that people in looking at financial services innovation need to be on the lookout for?
Yeah, it's the natural evolution. I mean, previously, 50 years ago, people would break into your house and steal. As we become more digital, the thieves become digital. I think it was Dr. Aina who had mentioned of the people in Mulot who are experts in social engineering you to actually give them money. One of the things that Safaricom has adopted and that M-Pesa Africa is also just beginning on the same is a paid bug bounty. So instead of having what we call reverse ransomware actually, instead of having someone exploit a weakness, because there is no system which is perfect. Our systems are not perfect. They're made by humans. So instead of someone having exploit a vulnerability in one of your APIs, what you do is actually you put in a proper formal bug bounty place or process such that if they tell you actually of these weaknesses, you actually pay them. And Safaricom, as of now, has paid over $250,000 actually to security researchers, to white hat hackers, who actually tell us of very many vulnerabilities.
You spoke very quickly there. You said 250.
$250,000.
I was waiting for 250,000. I'm like,
No,
shillings.
$250,000.
Then it's a $250,000.
Yes.
I'm like,
It's paid in
where has
dollars.
this information been hiding? Because clearly there could be a better way for all our genius youngsters who are trying to look for ways of making money using these systems to actually make bank properly. So
Yeah, yes. So it's something which is growing. So just like what we are talking of partnership and collaboration, we can also partner in collaboration with white hat hackers. Those are genuine security researchers who actually tell you of where you've gone wrong and how you can improve. So it's something now that M-Pesa Africa we are actually launching, just to be able to ensure that across our entire African estate, that we can actually be able to work together to collaborate with security researchers out there. So it means that people don't exploit now. People actually gain from whatever vulnerabilities are there.
fantastic. I think that points to the fact that more corporates need to think of bug bounty programs, whether it's your anything that's touched by digital. Literally, I think you need to look at being part of a bug bounty program.
Yeah,
or
true.
I think some organizations do have programs that you can actually plug into if you don't have the capability, and I know Safaricom does have some of those. Let's get a bit more interesting now, and we're back to Annie. When we're going to talk about blockchain. So, you guys recently, I think it was last year, you opened up a program looking at crypto and blockchain startups. Now, most of us are concerned about money movement, or transaction this, transaction that, but what are you seeing as the more innovative use cases within that sort of landscape?
Yeah, so it's been we're on our second wave now of fintechs focused on crypto and blockchain. And some of the use cases we are seeing or are coming to the fore include fraud. That's a big one. We have BitCrunch, who's looking at value-added services. Mm-hmm. We have Mintable, and I can't remember the second one. And they're focused on NFTs, right? So there's a whole slew of companies that have come into the program focused on different different use cases that are supporting both. We're trying to figure out how to innovate with them and then how to present that to our consumers as well, because there's a lot of demand there. I think the other program that's also super interesting is our open banking program. That's also recently launched. We've had the first wave of companies coming into the program about 2 weeks ago. We just announced them. So yeah, so there's lots of technology use cases that are coming in.
Great. I think that it's fantastic that the larger organizations that most of our companies look up to actually testing and dabbling with this. And connected to that, I'll quickly go to you, Tim. You have experience in blockchain and also the telco space. What are some of your thoughts around what could be next when you're looking at financial services innovation? Yeah,
that's a very interesting question because it's a personal interest of mine. I'm actually doing my MSc master's thesis on blockchain. And I like what Annie said when she said crypto and blockchain, because I think, unfortunately, the perception is that crypto is blockchain, and especially in Kenya, where get-rich-quick schemes are very common. Blockchain is much more wider. Cryptocurrency was just the first implementation of blockchain, but there is quite a bit of opportunity. And to be honest, hand on my heart, when you combine the potential of Africa and the potential of blockchain, I cannot see how far we together will be able to go. But I think from a financial perspective, I think one of the biggest one is decentralized finance. I don't know if someone would call it a competition for M-Pesa, but M-Pesa is dynamic, agile, and ready for all changes. I think the other one also that we are seeing, and remarkably is actually from central banks, is central bank digital currencies. Nigeria already launched the e-Naira. CBK Kenya is actually exploring, and I know Safaricom actually did provide feedback in terms of what we thought and of the digital currencies. Just to summarize it, we don't oppose it. I know people think like we oppose it, but there have been many other similar things which have been launched and we've actually embraced. So we're actually waiting to see what CBK or how fast CBK will actually roll out on the same.
Great. How are you doing for time? 2 minutes. Oh God. Okay. 2 minutes. Maybe George will take this one. Payments has become commoditized, and in my opinion, it's a race to zero cost transactions. What are your thoughts about sustainability, seeing that, if everyone's going to be saying send for less fees than, M-Pesa is charging, how's it gonna all come together?
Yeah, we had agreed you would give me the easy questions only. Okay, so let me try and answer this one. So the first thing is, I think in terms of the level of digitization, I think we are just getting started. So even when you look at a country like Kenya, where we say we have a very high level of financial inclusion, we are just over the 50% mark of where that is. So there is still almost 40-50% of value chains that are still very heavy in cash. Now, when you get out of Kenya and go to other markets in sub-Saharan Africa, that begins to drop drastically to 30% or less. So there are still a lot of opportunities in those particular areas.
Yes.
Then the second thing is, when you look at it from a value chain perspective, in terms of a sector, then you find pockets of a lot of unique challenges that need to be solved. And one of them is where, for example, I'm an international merchant and I want a solution that allows me to collect money that's currency agnostic.
Correct.
So I don't care what currency it is. At the end of the day, I really want you to pay me in dollars, but I also want the capabilities of collecting in the local currency, doing refunds in the local currency, paying my tax obligations in the local currency. So how do I solve for that? Then the third thing is that, and even looking at sectors, you still find sectors that are traditionally very cash heavy. So if you think about distribution in FMCG industry, it's still something that still has a lot of cash and has not been sufficiently digitized. Then the third issue is that when you think about the landscape that's there in Africa, there is still a lot of fragmentation, even when we look at something very well known like mobile money. So with the exception of Kenya and Zimbabwe, where there is a dominant mobile money player, what we see is that most people have to have 2 or 3 mobile wallets, because I work with provider A because they're very good in urban areas, but I need provider B because they have better coverage in rural areas. So how do I provide a frictionless payment experience for these people who are carrying multiple wallets, and they're also banked customers as well? And the last point is that the transaction fees are really not a problem. When you think about the number of actors in these value chains, there are a lot of them who would say, I'll pick up the transaction fees. The customer is not going to pay anything extra, because when you digitize these payments, the cost of digital money is still significantly lower than the cost of operating cash. And these players are able to take advantage of the velocity, the security and transparency that you get once you've digitized your payments.
Fantastic. I mean, ladies and gentlemen, we've, yes, Harry. Yes. Or you could shout. This buys us more time. Fantastic. It's
it's a very direct question which requires a yes or no answer to Steve. So your company has one CEO, it has one CFO, it has one CMO, it has one CHRO, but it has 12 CIOs. Are you building a tech company?
I mean, that's a great question, and probably now Steve will also close this session out for us, because earlier I spoke to him as well about something that Annie had mentioned on open banking. Yeah. So if you take both of those questions together to help us close out the session.
So you want a yes or a no? It's a yes. It's a yes. Is that good enough, or you want the details? Okay.
A tech company that sometimes does banking. So
it's a tech company with a banking license.
Yeah.
It is what it
So I
is.
mean, the other question was open banking. We hear a lot about it, but you haven't actually seen anyone do anything defensible or serious in this market. What are your thoughts on that, and are you guys having a play in there as well?
Yeah, so open banking is API microservices driven from a tech perspective. So definitely internally, all our architecture is API microservices for all the initiatives that we're developing. In terms of actually executing open banking, there's a couple of hurdles.
Mm-hmm.
One is a regulator. I don't think there are any clear guidelines around open banking in Kenya, particularly. The second one I can think of is the fact that even though we have data protection laws enacted, I think our customers are still wary because open banking requires I move data back and forth with all my partners.
Yes.
That includes PII data. So I think we're still not, our customers are not very, we already have issues in this space with fraud, with social engineering, and then now you're going to bring in actual data. I don't think we all know how to play in that space. I think there's also around, again, a little bit of legacy in our ways of thinking around open banking. Yes, we do collaborate, but there are instances where people are shy about collaboration because open banking is about collaboration. So those are the three, I think, hurdles that we face right now.
Fantastic. Ladies and gentlemen, that is time. Help me appreciate my panelists. And as they walk off stage, I hope you found value. And a lot of these conversations will continue online, so make sure you follow that hashtag, because there's a lot more insight that they had shared that we couldn't cover within that time frame. So thanks a lot.
All right, thank you.